Hello my friends, this is Sabrina with Sabrina's Crafty Corner or Sabrina's Crafty Home Decor, depending on where you're watching from. And today I am painting and going to stencil this spoon. Now I started it and forgot to turn the camera on, so I left a little bit of it. I use this gator tool here and sanded off the finish. I picked this spoon up at Goodwill and I sanded off the finish so that the paint would stick better and not flake off once it was dry. And I used a sponge dabber to give it 2 coats of this paint. It's Sandstone by Waverly, and it's chalk paint that I get from Walmart. And it took 2 coats to fully cover that wood underneath. And I use a sponge dabber to give it more texture and so that we don't have lines from like a paintbrush. Once that was dry, I used the smallest sponge dabber I have, this black, it's called Ink. It's Ink Waverly chalk paint, again from Walmart. And I put very little paint on the end of this dabber, and I'm using a stencil, and that stencil, you see a rose there, but I'm not using the rose. It's cursive words that you can't tell what they say, so it just looks like a bunch of cursive writing. You want to put very little paint on the end of that dabber, otherwise it'll bleed underneath and you won't be able to tell what your image is. And then I'm putting a second set. This time I kind of put them diagonal up towards the spoon part at the very top of the handle. And there you go. And now I'm using a wipe, or I think that's a wet paper towel, and I'm wiping off most of the paint so that I don't make too big of a mess. And then these stencils, I just take them to the kitchen sink and I wash them with soap. You just have to be very gentle when you wash them so that you don't bend the little plastic pieces and ruin your stencil. So I'm drying this with a heat tool that I got from Amazon. And I did use a little bit too much paint at the very top of that bottom set of lettering. You can kind of see that there's some black blobs there. So I'm just going to take that sandstone now that it's dry, and I'm going to go over it and give it a couple of coats. And just cover up the letters that got smudged. Now, if you like my videos, please be sure, if you're watching from YouTube, to give me a like and a follow. Then if you're watching from my Facebook pages, please be sure to give me a like and a follow. If you're watching from YouTube, please be sure to hit the subscribe button below. Then click on the bell and click on all, so it'll let you know whenever I post new videos. Now off camera later, I did go back with the transfer and I placed the transfer back on top of the letters so that I knew that it was even, and I did add a little bit more lettering to that. I was just a little more careful about using less ink on my dabber. This here is a water transfer, and I'm just using a clean sponge and some clean water, and I'm soaking the paper backing. You put the transfer down face down and you just soak that paper, and you see me testing it. That paper, when it is done, you should be able to see your image underneath. It should look somewhat clear, And that paper will slide right off really, really easily, leaving your transfer behind. So you just test it a little, and if it's not sliding off easily, then you just keep soaking it. And I got these transfers from, I believe it was from decoupagecentral.com. It comes in a whole sheet, and there's several different transfers on that sheet. Sorry, my dog walked through and knocked over my camera stand. Or knocked it over, but knocked it out of the way. So now I'm taking my gator tool again, and I am just sanding down the edges to bring back a little bit of that dark wood and give it a little more of a rustic look. And this is a makeup brush that I picked up at Dollar Tree, and dark finishing wax that bare dark finishing wax that I picked up from Home Depot. And I'm just rubbing that wax all over the entire, I think this is called a spork. But I'm saying spoon. So I rubbed it all over this entire spoon, and then I just used a paper towel to rub the excess back off. And now I'm just giving the top a coat of Mod Podge. I'm just sealing it in with the Mod Podge to make sure that transfer stays put and doesn't get scraped off, and none of that wording ends up getting scratched. So I just did the front of the spoon, not the back. You're not really going to see the back anyway. And this is a second one that I did. It was a set. I did the other one off camera, and but I did this one on camera for you all to see. And both those transfers came off the same sheet of transfers that I got from decoupagecentral.com. And I think they turned out super cute. And I did a second set, much larger set right here with different transfers, as well as, sorry, I didn't use transfers. I used all stencils. What can you do with these, you might ask? Well, I made these beautiful baskets. Or you could hot glue them together and hang them on your kitchen wall, whatever you see fit. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it.